Hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome back to the channel. Well, today we're talking about the final season finale episode of Star Trek Picard Season 2, Episode 10, entitled Farewell. Quite a good rounding out of the season. I think, generally speaking, most of the boxes that we kind of anticipated were kind of checked, and the arcs of our various different characters played out relatively satisfactorily, I think, this time around this season. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to Sci Fanatics yet, please go ahead, click on that big red button to stay up to date with all the latest Star Trek news on YouTube. So there was a fair bit of stuff to kind of wrap up in this episode. And there was some moments that sort of felt rushed through a little bit because, let's face it, we had a lot to unpack and a lot to kind of deal with in terms of resolving the overall plot before we got to the end of the episode. So we had the guys protecting the launch of the shuttle. We had Talon taking the place of Rene Picard so the launch could take place. Seven and Raffi and Rios taking out the drones that Sung had programmed to take out the launch. And it kind of all happened fairly quickly and sort of fairly effortlessly. There were no huge sort of stumbling blocks along the way. Talon making the choice to pose as one of the command crew team members, replacing Rene Picard so that I guess Sung could feel like that he's dispatched her and therefore leave her alone so the real Rene Picard could go and do what she was meant to do was a fairly I think it was a satisfying conclusion, not only to Talon's arc. I think it was good to see her contribute. Her whole life had been there watching Rene Picard from a young age, and I think making this ultimate sacrifice so that she could fulfill her prophecy and fulfill the mission was a good conclusion to this character. I think that wrapped up that part of the season quite well. We had some nice scenes with Talon, and Rene, and also between Picard and who we initially thought was Rene, but then obviously turned out to be Talon in disguise. We always knew that the mission would have to launch and would have to be a success for them to fulfill their overall mission, and I think the way the characters got there was a good one. It was a satisfying conclusion, I thought. It also, by definition, wrapped up the Adam Sung storyline. His mission failed, and Corey Sung, as a last bit of defiance against her father, deleted all of his research from his computers. Not before he had to pull out of his drawer a folder with the Project Khan title printed on the front. So it would seem like we obviously had established earlier in the season, Picard said a lot of the history preceding the Third World War in the late 20th and early 21st century was very disjointed, was very muddled. So it seems like they're retconning the whole eugenics war thing, not to the 1990s as it was stated in original series, but to probably the early part of the 21st century, somewhere between 2024 and 2050. We've always, talked about Khan and the super soldiers and the eugenics wars and all that sort of stuff as being earlier as per TOS's definition. But it was interesting that as the date on the folder stated 1996, this is when the report was issued, but not necessarily when the eugenics wars happened. So this document stating when the project was conceived might be the reason for the error in the TOS description of when the eugenics wars occurred. And our first episode of Strange New Worlds even backs that up by saying there was 2 American Civil Wars, followed by the eugenics wars, followed by the Third World War. Based on the fact that Gene Roddenberry didn't know that his TV series would last, 50 plus years, I think this is probably a nice way to, retcon that, keeping the history of the eugenics, but redefining exactly when it occurred in history, and I'm guessing that takes place somewhere between 2025 and the Third World War or whatever it's slated to be around 2050-ish or thereabouts. Now, probably the biggest surprise in this episode was the appearance by Wesley Crusher, aka the Traveller. Even though it was sort of fun to see Wesley pop up in this episode and to recruit Corey into the ranks of the other Travelers or whatever, geez, this felt like it was completely out of nowhere and just completely crowbarred into the story. Will Wheaton had this goofy look on his face for the entire time he was in the episode because he was just nerding out about being back in Star Trek again, as opposed to actually, providing a heartfelt and thoughtful performance. He just looked like he was about to burst into giggles every 5 seconds because he was so happy to be in a Star Trek episode once more. I kind of had difficulty, I guess, separating the nerdy Will Wheaton that presents the Ready Room episodes every week to his appearance in this episode. So I kind of felt that was a bit of a crowbarred in cameo. It didn't really have a place in this episode. I think it was just pried in there without justification. He's probably been nagging production for seasons to get an appearance, and they've probably finally said, "Oh, finally, okay, we'll give you a 1-minute cameo in the last episode or something." But yeah, it just felt out of place to me. It felt wrong. If Wesley was going to pop up again, it would have been better in a Lower Decks episode or something. I just think it just felt really forced and unnecessary in this episode, particularly the finale as well. I think the stuff with Q at the end of the episode, I think, was great. I think there's so much history between Picard and Q, and having this sort of last interaction in the episode between Q being not one of antagonism or of aggression or harassment. It was sort of sweet. I think Picard and Q, have got such a history going back to the very first episode of Next Generation, and it's clear that Picard has holds such a soft spot in Q's heart that he's never kind of been willing to completely, admit to, and we finally kind of got him admitting to it. It's sort of, let's face it, Picard is like Q's lovable pet that he likes to come and throw a ball for every once in a while, And I think we pretty much knew that there were only 2 options for our crew to get back to the 25th century. One was obviously Q, and the second was whether or not that Agent Wells storyline was going to play out and him turning out to be Duquesne of the timeship relativity, and therefore he would transport them back to the 25th century. Look, I'm not surprised that didn't eventuate. However, really, for writers and producers of these shows, if you're going to cast an actor who's been in Star Trek before, don't give him a name that, that reflects his previous character. Don't drop umpteen, different hints like Wells class, Martin McFly, Martin Wells, give him all these hints and references to being a time traveler, and then just pull the pin at the end and say, "Oh no, well that wasn't the case." Don't do that. It just pisses off fans. We're all geared up to expect something, and it doesn't pan out. It doesn't eventuate, even after all the hints point in that direction. It's just cruel. Please don't do it. Ultimately, I think it might have even been a better conclusion to the episode if Q had have actually, passed away or whatever, rather than doing his last finger snap and sending them back to the 25th century. For him to pass away, the heroes to realize they were actually stuck there forever, and then for Duquesne to show up and transport them back. I think that would have rounded out the Wells character a bit more nicely in this season finale, only because that's what we were kind of, hoping would happen. I've got no problem with Star Trek actors, reprising roles, whether, like in the case of Jeffrey Combs, where they have him in makeup and it's a completely different character. But yeah, Wells was just so close to Duquesne. Everything was pointing at that connection, and, it was all just a big ruse. The other thing we pretty much knew is that either what was going to happen by the end of the season is that Rios was going to stay with Teresa and Ricardo, or they were going to come with him back to the 25th century. Obviously, Rios stayed behind, which I think is a lovely rounding out of his character. It seemed very logical that he stayed there with Teresa. There was such a connection with Teresa and Rios and Ricardo. I think that was just a no-brainer to have him stay behind in this century and have a very fulfilling life with them. I think that was a lovely conclusion to the Rios character, and it really did make a lot of sense, particularly the way Rios described it, as he was always a bit of a loner, had a cargo ship by himself, created these holograms of himself. It was not healthy. He needed to settle down, and I'm glad that Rios managed to settle down with Teresa and Ricardo in the 21st century. I think that was a good choice, and also great that we got to see a bit more information as to how his life panned out. Guinan told us about how Rios and Teresa lived their lives, and I think having Guinan explain that was a lovely way to put a final little punctuation mark at the end of Rios's career and life. And obviously, once our crew gets transported back by Q to the 25th century, we find out, as we pretty much predicted, going back to about episode 3 or 4, that the Borg Queen at the start of the episode was Agnes. We kind of knew, and we kind of could see this coming a mile away. But even though you could see it coming a mile away and it wasn't a surprise in any way, it still made for a satisfying conclusion to the season. I enjoyed it. I think I did, the fact that I kind of could see it coming a mile away didn't undervalue, but it was still satisfying. It was still a satisfying conclusion to what had happened at the start in the first episode of the season, and also the reason behind what Agnes and her Borg ship was doing there. The whole anomaly that Agnes was there to prevent was sort of a bit, oh my god, a galaxy-ending anomaly has just suddenly appeared, and we need, Agnes's Borg ship and all of the Federation ships to make a big special shield to prevent galactic destruction. It was very quick and like out of nowhere, but at least I suppose it gives cause to why Agnes Borg Queen was trying to take over the fleet so quickly. Didn't have time to explain. We just got to get out there and stop this anomaly from blowing up the galaxy, which they obviously managed to do quite quickly and effectively. It probably would have made more sense if this anomaly had have been established in the first episode, but it is established in a way that you thought it was of the Borg's making. So it was almost like a threat that they'd created rather than something that Agnes Borg was trying to save the galaxy against. I think establishing it as that might have seemed a little bit less sort of jammed in there, just for it to suddenly kind of jam in. Oh, suddenly we've got this anomaly we have to save everybody from. It seemed very out of left field. It gives the reason behind Agnes's motivations in terms of taking over the fleet, all that sort of thing. But we probably needed a glimpse of this back in the first episode, just to kind of establish it as a threat. But you think it's part of the Borg ship's doing in coming through the temporal rift thing or whatever happens, and then creates this other anomaly. I think probably all arrows need to point at that being a hostile act created by the Borg, but then it turns around, no, this was a galactic phenomenon that she was there to protect against. I think that might have been more satisfying than just to have it, just establish it in the very last episode, kind of just sort of pluck it in there out of nowhere. I think that probably would have made a bit more sense and would have rounded out the story a bit better rather than just kind of crowbarring that piece of information in there in the last episode. But that being said, it was satisfying. We had it was a good conclusion to the episode, and we obviously got Elnor back. He's back on board the Excelsior. So good to see that Q brought him back to life or whatever, as well as part of our as part of the adjustments that he made to sending our crew home. And it was good, I thought, that in the absence of Rios, Seven got a field promotion to captain of the Stargazer. I thought that was good because Starfleet didn't want to give Seven a Starfleet commission, but I think she did a good job in taking the centre seat at the end of this episode. And also good to see all of our existing characters catch up for a drink with Guinan at the bar at the end, going over Rios's life and, just a little bit of a recap on how everybody's going. And I thought it was nice as well to have the Star Trek First Contact theme playing there at the end there in this scene. Because let's face it, there are a lot of similarities to Star Trek First Contact in this season of Picard. I think you've got, our heroes on the ship travelling back in time to help a historical figure who is an astronaut do a launch of a spacecraft that is going to, save the future. There's a lot of similarities between Star Trek First Contact and this season of Picard. So I guess to bring the Star Trek First Contact theme in at the end was a nice nod to that, I suppose. It'll be interesting to see in season 3 as to whether this new transwarp conduit that's formed, Borg Agnes is standing by and guarding, is going to play a role in season 3 of the show. Obviously, you've established this gigantic wormhole or transwarp conduit. So whether there's going to be something coming through that's going to be a threat they need to kind of deal with, be interesting to see whether that kind of play into things in season 3, or maybe it just doesn't at all. Maybe that's just just there now, and we're going to go off in season 3 and have a completely different adventure altogether that's in no way connected to our season 2 finale. And now that there's been a form of reconciliation or the coming together of both Picard and Laris, I wonder whether this means the trailer we saw for season 3 with Picard filling out what looks like invitations means that Laris and Picard might be tying the knot for season 3. I guess we shall see. All in all, I quite enjoyed the last episode of Star Trek Picard season 2. I think generally speaking, most of the boxes I think we wanted got ticked. All the characters' story arcs and everything got wrapped up in a relatively satisfactory way, and our characters that aren't returning for season 3 had their stories told effectively and round that out in a fairly nice way. Obviously, we're not going to have Alison Pill back for season 3. We're not going to have Santiago Cabrera back for season 3 because their stories have wrapped up. But we know season 3 is going to be jam-packed with the Next Generation cast members. So it was pretty clear that we needed to get, cut some of the previous cast back so that we can squeeze in these Next Gen cast members for season 3. And so I guess that makes sense. Guys, please leave a thought in the comment section. What did you think about the season finale of Star Trek Picard Season 2? Did you enjoy it? What did you like? What would you have liked to see happen? What did you enjoy seeing happen? Was it satisfactory to you? Did everything get concluded the way you wanted to see it? Or would you like to see some adjustments and changes and stuff and so forth in the season? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And please leave a super thanks if you're able to. It really helps the channel out. Much appreciated. Leave a like and a comment if you can't leave a super thanks, because that always helps. Share and subscribe, and check out my merch in the merch store, where for the next couple of days you can get 15% off all of my Star Trek merchandise up until the 6th of May. So that's just another day or two before that runs out. So yeah, be sure to take advantage of that 15% sale while it's on. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll see you very soon tomorrow, because I'll be doing my Strange New Worlds review for episode 1 tomorrow. I'll catch you guys then.